Well, let's talk about some games and some teams. And in your podcast, you talked about Oklahoma recently, and that's one that I feel is a little mysterious because what I kind of want to know is what kind of jump did Brent Venables make from year 1 to year 2 as a head coach? Because there's obviously a learning curve there.
There is, and I think early. Here's the problem: is that early we got sold a bill of goods against Nebraska. Meanwhile, Nebraska fell off, and we all know what happened with Nebraska, but they come out like gangbusters, and we're like, oh my goodness. Like, Brent Venables, hey, nothing's been lost. When Lincoln Riley left, hey, they replaced Caleb Williams. At that point, like, Caleb was doing some good things, but he wasn't like totally lighting the world on fire. So we're sitting there and we're thinking, oh my goodness, like, this team's unbelievable. And then they play against TCU, and it's like, oh boy. And then Dylan Gabriel gets hurt. And then they play against Texas. Like, oh, boy. So I think the highs and the lows of last year made it hurt maybe just a little bit more because it just didn't have the consistency that we've seen. I mean, name a more consistent program in college football over the last 20 years than Oklahoma as far as conference championships won.
Ohio State, only one. It's the only one in the history of college football. Ohio State won, Oklahoma too.
But tell me this: Ohio State had a 6-6 in there in what, 2012?
In the
2011,
the Tressel year, where he was
2011 or whatever it was. So I'm all for Oklahoma having high expectations, but I do think the fact that Lincoln Riley left, there was a void there, and it was almost like a gunshot to the gut, and they covered it with a Band-Aid. And that's not to call Brent Venables a Band-Aid. Just there was a hurt there that no one wanted to acknowledge. A lot of people said, well, we're actually going to be better because of this. And that was misguided. But we also kind of glossed over the fact that the turnover that existed on the roster was challenging. And I remember talking to Willie Taggart about this when he took over at Florida State after Jimbo Fisher left. When you go to Oklahoma as a player, when you go to Florida State as a player, that is a destination. That is not a stepping stone place. That is, as a player, you think, man, Florida State, Oklahoma, like, it doesn't get any better than this.
I've arrived. Yeah,
exactly. And then the coach leaves for A&M, a place that maybe you don't think, or at least hasn't been a destination in a little while. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, man, what the heck? Is this place not as good as I think it is? And it's not real. It's all subconscious, but there's a hurt factor that affects the team. And Willie Taggart said, the thing that I made the mistake of doing is I didn't heal those wounds from the previous coach departing for the next job. That wouldn't be perceived on the same level as ours. And that, I think, is something that might have happened last year at Oklahoma. They were so focused on, hey, we're going to attack this. Like, we didn't need him. But there was a hurt there that you had to acknowledge, you had to digest, and now you had to process and move forward. What they've done is done a really strong job of assessing their weaknesses, getting deeper at the spots they need to get deeper at, reinforcing the line of scrimmage on the defensive side, getting an impact player from Indiana into Sam McCullough that might be able to, I don't necessarily know if he'll take over games, but that ceiling exists.
Right.
And now you have another year in the system in which Dylan Gabriel and company offensively are going to feel a little more comfortable. So I think Oklahoma is a sleeping problem. I'm not going to call them a giant yet,
right? Because
I think they're a sleeping problem in the Big 12 because nobody's talking about them. There's no pressure on Oklahoma this year.
We'll be right back with more from Greg McElroy, but first I want to tell you about Game Time. It's the easiest way to buy last-minute tickets. It is stress-free. Couple taps, and you have the tickets you need. For example, let's say you're a big fan of Greg's alma mater, the University of Alabama. Let's say you're also a big fan of Cuban sandwiches. Well, there's one way to go see the Crimson Tide play while also being in the proximity of the best Cuban sandwiches in the world. That's right. Alabama plays at USF Week 3 in Tampa. You want to go see that game? Well, you can get in for as low as $23 using the Game Time app. So here's how you do it. You open the Game Time app. You find your town. So you go to Tampa. You find the home team. That would be University of South Florida football. Click on that. Click on the date of the game, USF versus Alabama. Click on a ticket. Oh, look at that. It's a view that you would have from that exact seat. Move your phone around. It's like you're turning your head in the stadium. And then you're only a couple taps away from having those tickets in your phone. You can text them to a friend if you need to do that on game day. It's the easiest, least stressful way to buy tickets. So download the Game Time app, use the promo code Staples for $20 off your first purchase, and go to your game, enjoy, or your concert, or your comedy show. Download Game Time, promo code Staples, $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed at Game Time.